Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. In the earlier session related to the perquisites segment of the head of salaries, we discussed the list of perquisites which are taxable in the hands of all employees, though we are yet to discuss the methodology of valuation of such perquisites. But later, there are some perquisites which are exempt in the hands of all employees. That is also an important aspect to be noted, which we discussed earlier, including the perquisite in respect of leave, travel, concession or assistance, and medical perquisite, very importantly, which is exempt but subject to certain conditions. Both of them, LTC and medical perquisite, are exempt, but conditions apply. What are those conditions? We discussed in the earlier session. Now let us understand some of the perquisites which are taxable only in the hands of a specified employee. So naturally, who is a specified employee? Definitely we have to look at it. But whatever the definition of specified employee is, the following perquisites are going to be taxable in the hands of only specified employees. Usually the perquisites which are in the form of obligation of employee met by employer, those are all taxable in the hands of all employees. But certain facilities or benefit or amenity granted or provided free of cost or at concessional rate which has not been included in the earlier categories, that will be falling in the category of those perquisites which are taxable only in the hands of specified employees. What are those examples? One is the provision of sweeper, gardener, watchman or personal attendant. We can call that domestic servant as a general word for all of them, but understand the difference. We are talking about provision of sweeper, gardener, watchman or personal attendant. We are not talking about the domestic servant's salary which was supposed to be paid by employee now being met by employer. If that is the case, it would have been taxable in all cases. But if the employer is not just paying the money to the domestic servant, he himself is providing such domestic servant to the employee, then such facility is a perquisite definitely, and it is taxable definitely, but only in the hands of specified employees. Same way, facility of using gas, electricity or water supplied by the employer, that also is taxable only in the hands of specified employees. Free or concessional tickets, of course, not related to railways, but for others, if any such free or concessional tickets are given by employer to employee, directly tickets are given, whatever those tickets may be, then also it is a facility that is given by employer to employee, and it would be taxable in the hands of only specified employee. But most important things in this are two. One is use of motor car and also provision of educational facilities. So that is what are two different perquisites which are also taxable only in the hands of specified employee. How to value them? Definitely we will discuss that later. But the list of perquisites which are taxable only in the hands of specified employees is this: employer providing a motor car to employee, employer providing educational facilities to the employee or the children of the employee, employer providing domestic servant to the employee, or employer providing gas, electricity or water or concessional tickets to the employee. These are all providing, not the money that is given by employer to employee. It is the facility itself, the amenity or benefit itself provided by employer to the employee. Naturally it is perquisite, it is taxable, but only point is what? These type of perquisites are taxable in the hands of specified employees only. Only specified employees. Then naturally a question comes, who is a specified employee? There are three categories of people who can be called as specified employee. Any one of them is enough. A director is called as a specified employee. Full-time, part-time doesn't matter, but any director of the company is considered to be a specified employee. Second one is an employee who has substantial interest in the company. This word substantial interest is going to be there many times in the Income Tax Act. What is substantial interest? Any person having 20% or more voting power in the company, or if it is not a company, if the employer is a partnership, then percentage of share in the profits is 20% or more. If any person is having that person is said to be having substantial interest in that organization, whoever that person may be and whatever that organization may be, not necessarily only company. The word substantial interest is a very broader word. If it is company, then 20% or more of voting power. In other words, equity shares naturally. So anybody having 20% or more than 20% of the equity shares in the company is said to be having substantial interest in that company. And if he is also an employee of the company, then he will be called as a specified employee. If that person is a director of the company, then also he is called as a specified employee. So that is the definition of specified employee. But once again, always we have to understand this. Are we talking about legal ownership or beneficial ownership? Naturally, always what matters is beneficial ownership, not necessarily legal ownership. So, in case there is a conflict between beneficial ownership and legal ownership, then we have to look at beneficial ownership, but not just legal ownership. So, that is the point to be noted. Of course, any case like this can be given, whatever it may be. But irrespective of that, Income Tax Act always looks at the substance over the form. So legal ownership does not matter, beneficial ownership matters. That logic you can remember, that is enough. Director employee is a direct point, and somebody having 20% or more of the voting power or share in the profits of the business, then also such person is called as a specified employee, of course, when he is employed by that company also. So these two things definitely look like major big people in the organization, like directors or some big shareholders. They are only called as specified employees. It looks like that. And now looking at the third one, all this balloon will burst automatically. An employee drawing in excess of 50,000 rupees is also a specified employee. And please don't imagine that 50,000 is per month. Nobody said that. When nothing is mentioned, that means what? It is per annum. So any employee whose income chargeable under the head of salaries exceeds 50,000 rupees is a specified employee. So by now you would have understood there is no point in discussing whether a person is specified employee or not, because practically 50,000 per annum means less than 5,000 rupees per month. Not even the smallest possible employee also in any organization will get less than that. So practically speaking, every employee is a specified employee. So we don't have to break our heads who is a specified employee, who is not. But yes, we have to remember this limit of 50,000 rupees because that is given in the law. So practically for problem solving, this may not be a big checkpoint for us. Normally, anybody will get more than 50,000 rupees per annum salary. But for MCQs, if it is asked whether a particular perquisite is taxable in the hands of a person or not, there we might have to check whether he is a specified employee or not, looking at this limit. And while calculating this salary of 50,000, what is going to be computed for the purpose of determining whether such person is a specified employee or not, that salary should be considered exclusive of the value of all the benefits or amenities not provided by way of monetary payments. In other words, simply speaking, we should not include perquisites which are only best facilities or benefits or amenities, not monetary benefits, non-monetary benefits, those should not be included while calculating this limit of 50,000. So 50,000 cash, money, income, that too chargeable under the head of salaries we are talking. So chargeable under the head of salaries means, once again question comes, sir, what about the standard deduction? Will it be available? Yes. So while computing the limit of 50,000, the following items should be excluded or deducted. All non-monetary benefits should be excluded. Monetary benefits to the extent which are exempt anyway already will be excluded. For example, HRA or education allowance, they are exempt according to section 1013A or 1014. Whatever they are exempt amounts, those are exempt. Remaining amount only is taxable. So when you say 50,000 rupees, what is that 50,000 rupees? That is the income chargeable under the head of salaries other than perquisites. But should we deduct 50,000 rupees standard deduction? Yes. After deducting that only, if a person's income under the head of salaries is exceeding 50,000 rupees per annum, then such person is called as a specified employee. So that is a point to be noted. And not only that, what if the employee is employed with more than one employer? Then also we have to calculate all the things for that employee, what he is receiving from both the employers. Both of them have to be aggregated. Both of them have to be added. And what are the things to be taken here? Basic, definitely yes. DA, any DA, fully taxable, commission, whatever commission it may be, bonus, fees, or any other taxable payment, any other taxable allowances, or any other monetary benefits, minus deductions under section 16. After doing all this, if that amount exceeds 50,000 rupees, if it is exceeding 50,000 rupees, exceeding, not exactly 50,000. If it is exceeding 50,000 rupees, then such person is called as a specified employee. So once again, practically it may not be a real useful item, because 50,000 whoever is getting, even after deduction of 50,000 of standard deduction also, is a very small employee. Such small employees do not even worry about tax, or they don't even know something called as tax also. So that is practically almost a useless provision, but it is there as a provision, so we should definitely know that. Useful for MCQs mostly. So who is a specified employee? Simply speaking, either if he is a director employee, or he has substantial interest in the organization, which means more than 20% or more voting rights in the organization or share of profit in the organization, or if that person is having income under the head of salaries exceeding 50,000 rupees without considering the non-monetary benefits, and after deducting all the exemptions possible and deductions under section 16 also. So that is what a specified employee means. So these are the basic things related to perquisites. We know the category of perquisites now. 3 categories: perquisites which are taxable in the hands of all employees, perquisites which are exempt from tax for everybody, and perquisites which are taxable only in the hands of specified employees. We need to know all of them. The second category already we discussed, which are exempt perquisites, and first and third categories, which are taxable perquisites. How they are taxable is the question. Now if you observe this segment of the chapter, it is completely different from the earlier segments like retirement benefits or allowances. Why? Because in those two segments, our focus area was how much amount is exempt from tax according to the Income Tax Act under section 10, whatever subsection. So the focus was on the exemption. Naturally, the remaining amount, whatever is not exempted, was taxable. But here, what is the challenge in the case of perquisite is not about exemption. Anyway, we know the exempt perquisites, but main problem here, or the challenge here, is valuation. Valuation. Why we should do valuation? Because the perquisites are not monetary items. Employer gives a house to employee. We cannot write in the amount column house. We cannot. We have to convert that into some monetary amount. So what we are going to learn is that valuation of perquisites. That is very important, which are going to be applied in the problems that we will solve in this chapter. So what are the things to be valued? Naturally, which have to be taxed in the hands of the employee, they will be valued, right? So, for example, let us say a company offers a housing accommodation rent-free to employee, but employee declines to accept it. Means it doesn't accept that accommodation. So is there any value for that accommodation? Should we value that? It doesn't make sense, because there is no facility that is taken by the employee. So there is no perquisite in that. That cannot be evaluated, because first of all, there is no facility. So that's a common sense point, nothing to really focus upon. But as far as the legal point of valuation of perquisite is concerned, we have to do that according to the valuation rules, not act or not sections. Perquisites have different valuation rules, and we have to follow those rules for the value of perquisites, where the perquisites are provided by the employer to the employee. And what is the rule number under which we are going to value these perquisites is rule number 3. There are so many sub-rules, you don't need to remember those sub-rule numbers and all. At a broader level, if you remember rule 3 is what is telling us about valuation of perquisites, that would be sufficient. Let us take one by one how to value different types of perquisites. First and foremost and most important one of all is valuation of a residential accommodation. Means employer is providing a residential accommodation to the employee where the employee will stay. And once again, I am just drawing your attention, employer is not giving money to the employee for the purpose of accommodation. If he does so, that is called house rent allowance. No, that is not what we are talking here. Here, employer is not giving money. He is providing an accommodation itself. He is providing a house itself to the employee where the employee can stay. So that is what is provision of residential accommodation when we say that. Here there are different cases, different possibilities. So first case is that where the accommodation is provided by government, central government, state government, whoever they may be. So government employees, let us say, how to calculate the value of perquisites. The good news is we don't need to calculate the value of perquisites. Whatever the license fee is determined by the government, that itself will be considered as value of perquisite. We are not going to value it. It will be already known. That means the license fee is fixed by the employer. And who is employer here? Employer is government, central or state government, whoever it may be. But in the case employee is a government employee, the accommodation provided by his employer to him is valued in accordance with the license fees determined by the employer, which is nothing but government in this case. Of course, if the employee pays any rent to the employer, in other words, the employer deducts certain amount from the salary of employee towards the rent of the accommodation that the employer has provided. So some cutting will be there for nominal amount, small amount, big amount, whatever it may be. But some amount will be collected from the employee as the rent of that accommodation. That should be reduced from this license fees. Always this point logic has to be remembered, always. Whenever we value the perquisite, any perquisite, whatever the perquisite we value, we will take the value of perquisite anyway. So value of perquisite we have to do according to what the rule says. From that, always there has to be an amount that should be deducted. What is that? The amount recovered from the employee. So whatever the value of perquisite, that will be according to the rule. But recovered from employee is a fact. If it is given in the question, that should be always reduced from the value of perquisite. The remaining amount only will be taxable. Because most of the cases it so happens that certain amount might be recovered from the employee. So that cannot be taxed. That will not be fair. So first whatever value of perquisite we calculate, we should do that. Then only the amount of money that is recovered from employee towards the provision of such perquisite should be reduced from it. And this logic is always common, not only for this. Everywhere it will be same. Whatever the value of perquisite minus the amount that is recovered from employee has to be always the logic that we follow throughout this discussion of valuation of perquisites. So what is the value of perquisite in case of the accommodation provided by the government? License fees is the valuation, that's all. Then, what if the employer also provides furniture? Furniture. So if at all the accommodation is a furnished accommodation, then what? Then we have to add some value towards the value of furniture also. How to do that? Here it again depends upon whether the furniture is owned by the employer or employer hired it from some other third party and then providing it to employee. Both are possible. If the furniture is owned by the employer, 10% per annum of the cost of furniture should be added. That is also value of perquisite towards the furniture that has been provided by employer to the employee. Whatever the cost of furniture may be, 10% of that will be considered as value of that furniture per annum. For example, the employer has provided 5 lakhs rupees worth of furniture to employee. The value of perquisite in that case will be 50,000 rupees. Whatever that furniture may be, television sets, radio sets, refrigerator, household appliances, air conditioning, plant equipment, whatever is provided at the house. We are talking about the residential accommodation provided by employer to the employee. Along with that residential accommodation, if the employer provides furniture also, 10% of the cost of furniture should be treated as value of such perquisite. That should be added to the original value of perquisite that is calculated for unfurnished accommodation. So original valuation is always for unfurnished accommodation. Then we have to add the value of furniture according to this rule, 10% of the cost of furniture if it is owned by the employer. So what if the furniture is hired from a third party? Then there is no problem. Whatever the actual hire charges are there payable by employer to that third party, that is a value of perquisite. That itself will be considered as taxable in the hands of employee. Of course, always as reduced by will be there. As reduced by what? Always reduced by the charges paid or payable by the employee. So if the employee is also paying some amount towards that, that should be reduced. That is all. That is a common logic always. That should be always remaining in mind. If such amount is given in the question, whatever the amount recovered from employee for whatever perquisite it may be, that should be reduced from the value of perquisite. But main thing, according to the rule 3, what is the value of perquisite, that we should remember. For residential unfurnished accommodation provided by the government to their employees, license fees fixed by the government itself is the value of perquisite. And for the purpose of furniture, this is the same valuation mechanism that is applicable for all types of employees. In case the accommodation is a furnished accommodation, 10% of the cost of the furniture if such furniture is owned by the employer, or if such furniture is hired by the employer, then actual hire charges paid by the employer to the third party will be treated as value of perquisite. Always the total value of perquisite is reduced by any amount recovered from the employee. That is a first case, government employees we can say. But now the second case is where the accommodation is provided by any other employer. Other means other than government. Let us see that here. Here, once again, there are multiple categories. So who is the employer? Anybody other than government. Here there are multiple categories. Observe them one by one and read and remember them. So here first category is what within this, where the accommodation is owned by the employer. So employer owns the accommodation and he is providing it to employee. Possible. And who is the employer? Other than government. Then we have to calculate the perquisite like this. Carefully observe this. This is the main important point to be remembered and applied also in the problems. So what is the value of perquisite in that case? If the accommodation is owned by the employer, then 15% of salary will be the value of perquisite. When? If the accommodation is in a city where the population is more than 25 lakhs as per 2001 census. So that is the latest official census so far. 2011 and onwards census, though it was conducted, it was replaced a little bit by the UIDAI Aadhaar project, but later also it has been into many different stages and political differences. So we don't have to enter into that. Simply speaking, whatever the cities are there in India in which the population was more than 25 lakhs, according to the 2001 census, if the accommodation is provided in that city, what is the value of perquisite? That is 15% of salary. So what is salary? Definitely that is also important point. We will come to that. But first rule you have to remember. Rule is what? If the accommodation is provided by an employer other than government, employer is not government, and accommodation is owned by the employer, and house is situated in a place where the population is more than 25 lakhs, then value of perquisite is 15% of salary. Where the population is more than 10 lakhs but less than or equal to 25 lakhs, then the value of perquisite is 10% of salary. Are we calculating exemptions here? No, we are calculating value of perquisite. So that is either 15% or 10% or 7.5% in other areas. Means where the population is less than or equal to 10 lakhs. Then the value of perquisite will be 7.5% of salary. Naturally, for which period this has to be calculated? For the period where the accommodation was occupied by the employee. That is a period for which we have to find out what is the salary for this purpose, and we have to value the perquisite like 15% of salary or 10% of salary or 7.5% of salary, depending upon the population of the city in which the accommodation is located. Not where the office is located, where the accommodation is located, population of that city matters. Sir, should we know which city has how much population? Who knows? Nobody need to know that. But should we also not have the common sense that suddenly if the question says Hyderabad, I don't know whether it had a population of 25 lakhs or not as per 2001 census, you cannot say it had. So bigger cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, these are all having already more than 25 lakhs population. So by looking at the name of the city, broadly we can understand what is the population of that particular city for this purpose. So for all other cities, you cannot know. If the question suddenly says somebody is posted in Kakinada, we don't know what is the population of Kakinada, not necessarily. Is it falling below 10 lakhs population, or is it between 10 to 25 lakhs population? We don't need to know that. And we have to also understand it is not what is expected of us. Simply speaking, it will be given in the question what is the population of the city. Don't worry about that. But what we should be remembering, depending upon the population of the city, what is the value of perquisite? If the population is more than 25 lakhs, then the value of perquisite is 15% of salary. If the population is between 10 to 25 lakhs, then the value of perquisite is 10% of salary. And if the population is less than or equal to 10 lakhs, then the value of perquisite is 7.5% of salary. So that we should remember is the valuation of perquisite in case the accommodation is owned by the employer. And naturally, as you can observe, the definition of salary becomes very important here, because the value of perquisite depends upon that. Right? That is the valuation of unfurnished accommodation provided by an employer who is not government, and accommodation is owned by the employer. Sir, what about furniture if the furniture is provided? Nothing new. 10% per annum of the cost of the furniture if it is owned by the employer. If such furniture is hired from a third party, whatever the actual charges paid by employer to the third party will be considered as value of furniture. That is always common, irrespective of the employer is government or not, whether house is owned by employer or not. Valuation of furniture is always same. It is what? 10% per annum of the cost of the furniture if the furniture is owned by the employer, or actual hire charges paid by employer if such furniture has been also hired by the employer. But valuation of the basic core accommodation, housing, residential accommodation, is on the basis of population of the city in which the house is situated when the house is owned by the employer. Then only we have to look at all these populations and all. Depending upon the population, the value of perquisite could be either 15% of salary or 10% of salary or 7.5% of salary. Of course, as reduced by always, this is common. If at all an employee pays any rent, that has to be reduced from the value of perquisite, already what we did. So that is the valuation of perquisite where the accommodation is owned by the employer. Another possibility where accommodation is taken on lease or rent by the employer, means employer does not own this accommodation. He is taking on lease from somebody else, and then in turn he is giving this accommodation to employee for staying. In other words, the employer does not own the accommodation that has been provided to employee. Then what? Then we should not look at population of the cities at all. It doesn't matter. Simply what is the value of perquisite is actual amount of the lease rental paid or payable by the employer, or 15% of salary, whichever is lower is the value of perquisite. Whichever is lower. So this is the first time probably where a benefit has been given to the SSC. Always if you observe in the exemptions and earlier wherever there is whichever is lower, exemption was whichever is lower. Now the value itself is whichever is lower. This is not a punishment. This is a benefit to the SSC, whatever it is. Valuation rule 3 provides that if the accommodation is provided by the employer to the employee and that house is not owned by the employer, then what is the value of perquisite? It is either 15% of salary directly or the actual rent or lease payable by the employer, whichever is lower in these two, will be treated as value of perquisite. Of course, as reduced by the rent, always this will be there. Of course, the furniture also will be same, 10% per annum of the cost of the furniture, or actual hire charges paid by the employer, as the case may be, and as reduced by the charges payable by employee. So this logical things always they are same. We don't need to again and again go through them. What we have to be focusing more on is the core valuation. If the accommodation is provided by the government, being an employer, then license fees is the value of perquisite. If the accommodation is provided by any employer other than government, but the accommodation is owned by the employer, then we have to look at the population of the city in which the accommodation is provided. Depending upon that, the value of perquisite would be 15% of salary, or 10% of salary, or 7.5% of salary. If the employer does not own the accommodation, he himself is taking the accommodation on lease from somebody and then in turn giving to the employee, then we have to take 15% of salary or the actual amount of rental or lease charges paid by employer to whoever is the owner. Whichever is lower of these two will be treated as the value of perquisite. But in all cases, furniture should be added if it is provided at the rate of 10% per annum on the cost of furniture or actual hire charges paid by the employer. And if at all any amount is recovered from the employee, after calculating the value of the perquisite, we should reduce it. We should reduce it from the value of perquisite as calculated above. So that is about valuation of perquisite in respect of residential accommodation. Now there is one more small variation to this. If the accommodation is provided in a hotel, then what? So where the accommodation is provided by anybody, government, non-government, whoever that may be, accommodation is provided in a hotel. Is the hotel owned by employer? We don't care, doesn't matter. Simply speaking, accommodation is provided in the hotel, not like a normal house. Then what? Then 24% of the salary or actual hire charges paid by or payable by employer to such hotel, whichever is lower, will be treated as value of taxable perquisite. If, only if, don't worry about this 24% always. We have to check facts of the case according to the information given in the question only. We have to apply the relevant provision. If the accommodation is provided in the hotel, then only. If it is provided in the hotel, then 24% of the salary or actual hire charges paid, whichever is lower, will be treated as the value of perquisite. That's it. There is no basic and furniture because hotel already comes with furniture. So 24% directly of salary will be treated as the value of perquisite or the actual hire charges paid by the employer to such hotel, whichever is lower, is the value of perquisite as reduced by any amount recovered from employee. That is the valuation in respect of the accommodation provided in a hotel. Of course, there is an exception here. One more point is to note this exception. However, where the employee is provided with such a hotel accommodation for a period of not exceeding 15 days. On his transfer from one place to another, there would be no perquisite. So for example, employee is transferred from Mumbai to Chennai. So immediately he may not get a house in Chennai and all, it will take some time to settle down. Employer has given him hotel to stay. For 15 days, there is no value of perquisite. That is what we should understand. If it is a continued stay more than 15 days, in excess of 15 days only will be taxable. Up to 15 days of stay in the hotel, upon the transfer of the employee, shall not be treated as perquisite at all. There would be no perquisite in that case. That's an exception. Because it is exception, we should also remember that. Up to 15 days only, by the way. Right? So that is one point to be noted. And there are some other general points also to be noted, which are like, once again, not normal cases but exceptional cases type. What if on the account of the transfer of the employee, employer is provided accommodation, already is provided with an accommodation in one place, and is also provided another accommodation at the other place also. So at the same time, employee is having two accommodations, then how to deal with that? Then we have to take the value of perquisite with reference to only one such accommodation, whichever has the lower perquisite value, so that it is beneficial to the SSE for a period of not exceeding 90 days. So this is one more exception we can say. Though the employee is provided with two houses, one, the place from which he has been transferred, two, the place to which he has been transferred. Both the places the employee is provided with accommodation. No problem. Only one of them will be considered for valuation purposes. Only one of them will be taxable. Other one is not taxable, that means. So which one is taxable? Whichever is having lower perquisite value, that will be taxable. But is it going to happen forever? No. This is only for a period of 90 days. After that what? After that the value of perquisite shall be charged for both such accommodations. So that will be taxable. Both the accommodations become taxable. So double valuation happens. We cannot say unfair because already 90 days time is given. Up to 90 days, one of such accommodations is not to be taxable. After 90 days, both accommodations will be taxable as perquisite. That is one more exceptional case. Possible. All of them are possible to be asked in the questions. The point is, we have to be very clear about the provisions in the rule that has been mentioned and further points like this which are given in the note. So that is one more exceptional case. If hotel accommodation is provided, normally speaking 24% of salary or the actual rental paid by employer to the hotel, whichever is lower is the value of perquisite. But what was the exception for hotel? Up to 15 days there is no perquisite if such hotel accommodation is provided due to the transfer of the employee. But for a normal accommodation, not hotel, for a normal accommodation, if it is provided at both the place of the original transfer and the place where the employee is transferred to, in such case, one such accommodation was only taxable up to a period of 90 days. Later, both accommodations shall be taxable. That's it. Now another situation, very exceptional, very exceptional situation. Imagine an employee is working at a mining site or an onshore oil exploration site or a project execution site or a dam site or a power generation site or an offshore site. These are all remote locations, actually speaking. Means employee himself is working in a very remote area. Somewhere in the middle of jungle, somewhere in the middle of the sea, he is working. There, if accommodation is provided to the employee, if that also is taxable, that would be not fair. So that is not taxable. It will not be treated as perquisite. It will not be treated as perquisite if accommodation is provided to an employee working where? Not everywhere. Working in a mining site or an onshore oil exploration site. That will be in the middle of the sea. Project execution site, whatever it is, a dam site or a power generation site or an offshore site. So in all these cases, there is no value of perquisite. They should have left it like that. But as usual, the babus who create the laws and rules Cannot keep it simple. So what they said? Again they said following conditions are applicable. When is it an exempt prerequisite? It is an exempt prerequisite normally. If accommodation is provided to these people who are already working in a very remote area, and definitely they are doing a great service to the infrastructure of the nation. So what should have been the case? Okay, Baba, whatever accommodation is provided to you, that is the duty of the company. It is not a facility. In the middle of the jungle, you give him a hut, and you would make it that also taxable is ridiculous. So it was good to say, no, it is not taxable. It is not treated as prerequisite. But they didn't leave it there. Then they said conditions apply. What are the conditions? First of all, that accommodation should be of temporary nature. And see the another ridiculous condition. The size of the accommodation should not exceed 800 square feet. So the total area of the accommodation in which the employee is staying in the remote area, that too in a temporary accommodation, that size of that accommodation should not exceed 800 SFT. I don't know what is the purpose or logic of 800 SFT. And what is the problem to the Indian government or income tax officials if that accommodation is 1000 SFT and employee is living in a lavish accommodation in the middle of the jungle or sea? Is that a problem? For that you will make it taxable. Ridiculous, but can't help it. Can't help it. But that is the way the laws are made, and particularly Income Tax Act is always like that. So yes, though it is meaningless, though it is irrational, the conditions say this accommodation which is exempt or which is not treated as prerequisite in relation to the employees working in mining site, dam site, etc., that should be of temporary nature, and that size of the accommodation should not exceed 800 SFT, and that should be located not less than 8 kilometers away from the local limits of any municipality or a cantonment board. Not less than 8 kilometers it should be away from a local limits of any municipality or a cantonment board. Cantonment board is basically the military area. So that is also a kind of local authority. Whatever it is, the limits of any municipality within 8 kilometers, if this accommodation is located, then also exemption is not applicable. So it should be located at a place which is more than 8 kilometers away from the local limits of any municipality. And the size of accommodation should not be more than 800 SFT, and it should be of temporary nature. So these are the conditions. And again, it should be located in a remote area which is defined again specifically. At least 40 kilometers away from a town having a population of 20,000 based on the latest published census. So with these conditions, who is going to measure the distance? Who is going to measure the population? Who is going to measure the area of the accommodation provided? All these questions are valid, but no answers for them. The point is, these conditions apply in order to get exemption for an accommodation which is provided to a person who is working in a mining site, oil and exploration site, project execution site, etc., So these conditions are to be just remembered theoretically, because there is nothing that we can do. It is only either taxable or not taxable. There is no calculation here. Taxable if these conditions are not satisfied. Not taxable if these conditions are satisfied. And what are those conditions? It should be located in a remote area, and it should be temporary in nature. Size of that should not be more than 800 SFT. So that is the condition here. Of course, if you observe the distinguishing point between first and second, or is there, not and. So any one of them is okay. So if the accommodation is located in a remote area, really remote area, then the 800 SFT condition and all will not apply. Or, not and. So if it is located in a really remote area means when? If it is 40 kilometers away from a town having a population of not exceeding 20,000 in number. So that is called as a remote area. Fine. We can consider this as a remote accommodation which is not taxable. When it is not taxable, there is nothing for us to calculate. So such cases will not be there in the problems. These are only useful for theoretical and MCQ discussions. These are some exceptions or special cases we can say. Also, where the accommodation is provided by the central government or state government, then it will be calculated according to the license fees. There is nothing special. We should focus on that. But what is an accommodation? That also is a generic thing. Anything is an accommodation. The law never left anything. House, flat, farmhouse, or part thereof, or accommodation in a hotel, motel, service department, guest house, caravan, mobile home, ship, or any other floating structure. Anything is an accommodation. So there is no definition of that particularly. It includes all of them. Hotel means all. Hotel is hotel. We don't need to worry about these definitions. Those are common. But in case the accommodation is provided by the employer, who is government, who is not government but owning the accommodation, who is not government but not owning the accommodation, those three calculations we should be very much important and taxable. Then what about concession? Sir, there is concession itself means what? Whatever the value that we do, valuation minus amount recovered is the concession. And that concession is taxable. Doesn't have to separately have any discussion on that. Don't need. Because already the logic is same. That is what? Value of perquisite minus amount recovered. That is a concession. Let us say value of perquisite according to us is 50,000 rupees. Amount recovered from employee is 30,000 rupees. How much concession is given? What is the concessional rent? 20,000 rupees. That would become a taxable perquisite. That's what concession means. So this is all summarized here. Once again, the same thing. Depending upon population of the city, 15% or 10% or 7.5% of salary will be considered as value of the taxable perquisite if the accommodation is owned by the employer. If the accommodation is taken on lease by the employer, then rent paid by the employer or 15% of salary, whichever is lower, will be treated as value of the perquisite, and minus the rent recoverable from employee always will be there. If that is there, then the amount will be remaining amount, that is taxable value of perquisite. That's it. And already we have seen this furniture also. Furniture is always the same whether it is provided to government employee or non-government employee. Hotel also already we have seen that. Same things are repeated here, nothing special. But the real important aspect in the computation of value of perquisite in respect of rent-free accommodation is what is the definition of salary. This is the most important aspect. What is the meaning of salary here while calculating the value of perquisite? Now, what is salary? Here, for this purpose only, once again, salary definition is different from place to place within the head. Here, for the purpose of valuation of rent-free accommodation, what is salary? It includes anything called pay or allowances, basic plus DA or dearness pay or dearness allowance, whatever it may be, bonus or commission, whether it is payable monthly or otherwise, or any monetary payment, whatever the name it may be called, from one or more employers as the case may be. So every monetary payment is included here. First point to be noted. Any monetary payment, whatever it may be called, basic, DA, whether forms part of salary or not, unless it is forming part of salary, it will not be included here for the purpose of definition of salary while valuing the rent-free accommodation. So the essence of all the above can be considered as monetary payments. All of them will be considered as part of salary for this purpose. What are not to be included, what salary does not include here is DA not forming part of salary is not included. In other words, DA or dearness pay, whatever the name called, so there is no difference between dearness allowance and dearness pay. Both are same. Just name difference, that's all. But if it is forming part of salary, then only it will be considered as salary for this purpose. If it is not forming part of salary, then it is not to be included for this purpose of computation of salary. Then employer's contribution to the provident fund should not be included. Allowances which are exempted already To the extent they are exempt, they should not be included. In other words, only taxable portion of the allowances should be included in the definition of salary here. And most importantly, the perquisites should not be included at all while calculating salary for the purpose of this. And payments or expenditure which are not taxable, for example, medical insurance premium and all, that is anyway not taxable. It is not taxable and it is not even considered as a monetary payment. So it is not to be included also. So what are the things to be included and what are the things not to be included? You have to be very careful while defining salary for the purpose of valuation of rent-free accommodation. What are things to be included here? Basic plus DA, farming part of salary, plus bonus or commission or any other monetary payment, and taxable allowances should be included. What should not be included? DA, not farming part of salary, should not be included. Employer's contribution to the recognized provident fund or whatever provident fund, taxable, not taxable, doesn't matter. It should not be included here. And exempt allowances should not be included. To the extent they are exempted, they should not be included. And perquisites should not be included at all, including medical insurance premium, etc. But one more point also to be noted here. There is one point which is not given, but that also is an important point to be noted. In exclusions, the lump sum retirement benefits also should not be included. Lump sum retirement benefits. So lump sum retirement benefits should not be also included. So that is also to be remembered here while calculating the salary. Lump sum amounts. So lump sum amounts should not be included. Something like say gratuity, leave salary if at all on retirement. These are not to be included for the purpose of definition of salary. Only the recurring items should be included. One-time payments should not be included. Then naturally question comes, sir, what if there is a uncommuted pension? First of all, if there is uncommuted pension, if there is, that means the employee has retired. An employee is retired, there will not be any accommodation. So such question does not arise. But even if, let us say, employee has been given accommodation even after his retirement by his so very gracious employer, even then, should the uncommuted pension be included? Definitely yes, because that is a periodic payment. It is not a lump sum payment. So lump sum retirement benefits should not be included here. DF, not forming part of salary, should not be included here. Employer's contribution to the PF should not be included here. Exempt portion of the allowances should not be included here. Perquisites should never be included here while calculating salary for the purpose of valuation of rent-free accommodation. That's it. The most important provision or rule related to the valuation of perquisites is done. That is the value of rent-free accommodation. Very, very important point and rule. Now let us apply that provision in some of the examples here, which is given here in illustration number 13. So Mr. C is a finance manager in ABC Limited, and he has been provided with rent-free, unfurnished accommodation in Mumbai. And he gives you the following particulars. Basic salary is 6,000 per month, and DA is 2,000 per month. 30% is only for forming part of retirement benefits, which means 30% of 6,000 is 600 per month will be included as part of the retirement benefits for DA. All that we can just say DA forming part of salary. DA forming part of salary, how much? 600 rupees per month. Bonus is 1500 rupees per month. Per month, that is also. So this is the details of salary related to Mr. C. Okay, fine. Question is, even though the company allotted the house to him on 1/4/2019, that is the beginning of the year, still he occupied the house only from 1/11/2019. So the question comes, sir, should we calculate from the date of allotment of the house or from the date when the house is actually occupied by the SSE? We already discussed this in the rule itself. Valuation should happen for the period where the house is occupied by the SSE, not from the date of allotment. Allotment is just a internal procedure within their company. But when the house is actually occupied, from November onwards it is occupied. So how many months? November, December, January, February, March. So definitely 5 months the accommodation is occupied, and it is provided where? In Mumbai, and nothing else is given related to the rent paid by the company. That means the accommodation should have been owned by the company itself. Then naturally the population of the city matters. Mumbai definitely has more than 25 lakhs population. So naturally, what is the direct value of perquisite here will be 15% of salary. Then what is the salary here? So salary is 5 months into monthly salary of each of them, which are all included. So which are to be included? 6,000 to be included. Yes, that is salary. Plus 600 should be included. That is DA farming part of salary. Plus bonus should be also included. That is also a cash payment. So 1500 rupees bonus. So that is the total monthly salary. So 6,000 plus 600 plus 1500 monthly is 8,100. Like that, how many months? Only 5 months. So that comes to 40,500 rupees. That is what? That is not the value of perquisite. That is the salary for the purpose of valuation of perquisite. But what is the value of perquisite? That will be 15% of 40,500. So multiply 40,500 with 15%. Then we get the value of perquisite. That comes to 6075. 6,075 rupees is the value of perquisite. And why 15% of salary? Because the accommodation is in Mumbai, which is having a population of more than 25 lakhs. That's it. So that is one of the applications of computation of value of rent-free accommodation. In this case, it was unfurnished accommodation. Then illustration 14 says, using the same data given in the previous illustration, compute the value of the perquisite if the C is required to pay a rent of 1,000 rupees per month to the company for the use of this accommodation. So that means the company is recovering some money from this guy. How much? 1,000 rupees per month. So this is where sometimes the students do mistake. When the rent recovered from employee is given, we should not even look at that till we first calculate the value of perquisite. First we have to calculate value of perquisite, then only we have to look at rent recovered from employee. Value of perquisite we already have, that is 6,075. From that, reduce the rent recovered from employee. How many months we are talking about? 5 months only. So 5 months, 1,000 rupees per month if rent is recovered. So reduce 5,000 rupees which has been recovered from the employee already. So after reducing it, what is the value of perquisite now in this scenario? Naturally 1075. That is the value of perquisite in the case of illustration 14. So final answer here would be 1075. Next, same data once again. Using the data given in illustration 13, compute the value of the perquisite if ABC Limited has taken this accommodation on a lease rent of 1,200 per month. So ABC Limited is not owning the accommodation now. It is leasing the accommodation from somebody else. And Mr. C is required to pay a rent of 1,000 rupees per month anyway, as usual, to the company for the use of this accommodation. Then what? Then the provision changes. So if the accommodation is not owned by the employer, then what is the provision? Then we should not look at population. It doesn't matter whether it is Mumbai or someplace else. Doesn't matter. There directly what we should take? Either the rent that is paid by the employer or 15% of salary, whichever is lower. See, 15% of salary we already calculated. We don't need to once again calculate. So how much was the 15% of salary? 6075. We already have it. So let us take that first. 6075, we already know that. That is 15% of salary, which is calculated already. Then the second one is rent paid by the employer. And here employer is paying how much rent? Is paying 1,200 rupees per month. Like that 5 months only we are talking about. So 5 into 1200 rupees means 6000 rupees is the second one. That is really the rent paid by employer. Whichever is lower is taken as the value of perquisite. So now what is the value of perquisite? Not 6075, it will be 6000. After calculating this, if any rent is recovered from the employee, which in this case is 1000 rupees per month, that should be reduced. Again, period we are talking is always important, that is 5 months. So 5 months, 5000. If you reduce that 5000, then what is the value of perquisite in this particular scenario? Naturally, it will be 1000 rupees. That is the final answer. In case where the employer is not owning the accommodation, but he is hiring or leasing the accommodation. So that is one more scenario using the same data. Now the story continues. Illustration 16 also referring to the original data in illustration 13 only. And we have to again compute the value of perquisite. If ABC Limited has provided a television, the written down value and cost both are given. We have to always be careful. We should never look at unnecessary information. What is important for us? Cost. 10% of the cost was the rule saying. Written down value, why? We don't care about it. That doesn't matter to us. So cost of that television was 25,000. 10% of that will be naturally value of perquisite towards furniture. Anyway, not only that, 2 air conditioners also are paid, are given by employer. But these air conditioners are not owned by employer. The company is paying rent for air conditioners. How much? Read it carefully. 400 per month each. Each word is important, that is why. So 2 air conditioners, 400 per month each means definitely 800 per month is the value of perquisite in respect of air conditioners. 800 per month, that is, because 2 air conditioners are provided. So that is one point to be noted according to the information given. And when the television was provided, once again, television was not provided from the beginning. It was provided on 1/1/2020 only. That means only 3 months. Only 3 months. And however, Mr. C is required to pay a rent of 1000 rupees per month anyway. That is already there for the use of this furnished accommodation. Now it is just furnished accommodation. Once again, using the data in illustration 13 means we have to refer to the original data only. So what was the original amount of value of perquisite according to the population of the city? That was 6075. That was already calculated, which is nothing but 15% of salary. That was already calculated, 6075. Then now what we should add and deduct? We should add furniture values like what? For television, we have to calculate carefully. 25,000 rupees is the cost. 10% was per annum, but here it is only for 3 months. So how much will be the value of this television should be included? 625 only. How? 25,000 into 3/12. Only 3 months it was provided. So 25,000 into 10% into 3/12. So 625 rupees is the value of perquisite towards television. But not only that, air conditioners we know already 800 per month, that is. And it was not mentioned when these air conditioners are given. So we have to think that it has been given for the entire 5 months. So 800 into 5, that comes to 4,000 rupees value of air conditioner. So now basically what is the value of the furnished accommodation that has been provided to the SSC? That will be how much? 4,000 plus 625 plus 6075. That comes to 10,700. That is what is the value of furnished accommodation. After calculating this only, we should look at how much is recovered from employee. Now we know recovered from employee is 1,000 per month, which comes to 5,000 for 5 months. If you reduce that, naturally, what is the value of perquisite now? It will be 5,700. That's it. That is how the calculations will change if the employer provides furniture also. So the final answer would be 5,700. That is illustration 16. But now the story is not over. Illustration 17 also saying that we have to use the data in illustration 16, not 13. Compute the value of the perquisite if Mr. C is a government employee and license fees determined by the government for this accommodation is 700 rupees per month directly. That's all. So 700 per month means what is the value of perquisite for 5 months? That is 3,500. That is the basic value of perquisite. Now which will change. It is not 6075. Rather, it becomes 3,500. Remaining things are all same, no? So once you have 3,500, add 4625, deduct 5,000. 4625 is the value of both furniture in the form of television and air conditioners. 5,000 is the amount that is collected from the employee. So 3,500 plus 4625 minus 1,000. In this case, the value of perquisite would be 3,125. But the basic calculation definitely has changed. It is not 15% of salary. It is directly the license fees determined by the government. So naturally the final answer would be here 3,125 rupees. That's it. That is about the valuation of furnished or unfurnished accommodation provided by employer to the employee. In case the employer is government, then license fee itself is the value of perquisite. In case of other employers, then value of perquisite depends upon whether the accommodation is owned by the employer or not. If the employer owns the accommodation, then the value of perquisite depends upon the population of the city. It could be either 15% of salary or 10% of salary or 7.5% of salary according to the population of the city in which the accommodation is located. And salary for this purpose means basic plus DA forming part of salary plus bonus plus commission plus all taxable allowances, and salary for this purpose does not include DA not forming part of salary, contribution of employer to the recognized or unrecognized provident fund, whatever it may be, and perquisites should not be included while calculating salary here. Lump sum retirement benefits should not be included while calculating salary for the purpose of valuation of rent-free accommodation. And of course, if the furnished accommodation is given, first we should calculate the rent-free unfurnished accommodation, then add value of furniture according to whether that furniture is owned by or leased by the employer. If it is owned by employer, 10% of cost of furniture. If it is leased by employer, actual hire charges paid by employer will be the value of furniture. That should be added. Then we get value of rent-free furnished accommodation. From that, any rent recovered from employee has to be always deducted, so that we get the value of taxable value of perquisite in respect of rent-free or concessional rent accommodation. Very, very important provision. Go through this provision very carefully, and application of that has to be also practiced well in this case of valuation of rent-free accommodation. Fine. That is a very crucial provision or rule, we can say, in this entire list of perquisite. Other perquisites will be more or less simple and straightforward. Motor car, of course, is also another important one and bigger one. And after that, mostly the remaining perquisites are commonsensical. Logically, we can just calculate them. We'll see the valuation of perquisite in respect of other types of perquisites in the next session. Till that time, take care. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.